Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jared Rand, and welcome to the Global Guided Meditation Call for Sunday, February 11, 2024, a little after 3:15 p.m. Eastern. If you aren't getting messages from my assistant, check your spam folder. It happens on occasion where it seems like most of the messages that are sent out go into people's spam folders. So you might want to check those because we've had people contact us 2-3 times saying that they haven't gotten any response. Believe you me, we respond just about to everybody. I can't say everybody because there are some that do not warrant a response. Most of us will, or because of our conditioning and programming on this planet, we believe that there is a God that lives outside of us that we must worship and bow to, or if we don't, we will be punished. The word God-fearing, think about that. God-fearing was invented by beings that, again, wanted us to believe that we were insignificant and we must pay homage to a God outside of us. And as Ramana Maharishi quoted, "Do not delude yourself by imagining your source to be some God outside of you. Your source is within yourself. To give yourself up to it, see the source within and merge with it." Now, for some of us, it seems to be really perplexing that we're in these bodies and we have these personalities and character and different functions that we do in the course of our life. So how can there be something inside of us that we don't know about? The body has vocal cords, correct? The body never lies. And it is a vessel that operates. The God, the pure consciousness, is within the body. So we live in a world, currently, that ignores the fact that a supreme, divine, all-loving intelligence lives within us. As I mentioned, we've been programmed to believe we are spiritually disconnected and must fix our broken selves to feel whole and reconnected again. We do not realize it, yet we are just used to feeling spiritually numb as we have been plagued every day of our lives by an overly materialistic society which is constantly seducing us with its glorified multi-billion-dollar hypnotic media programming. We have contracted a deep case of spiritual amnesia and have forgotten how to relax into our spiritual essence and find our own intimate connection with the divine. Because as we know, we're not separate. You believe you're separate. But you're not. You cannot ever be separate. The illusion of separation, obviously, is for us to experience. Each one of us. All facets of the one. Now, what do you think the greatest lie or untruth is of mankind? What do you think? The greatest lie. the everyday ignorance of our spiritual nature is the greatest lie mankind is living today. It is the cause of every moment of suffering each human being on this planet is currently enduring in this very now. Now, one may think that this spiritual drought was created by mankind coincidentally and is not part of the grand divine design. Well, we know nothing is by coincidence or without purpose in this universe. This blind ignorance is within us all on purpose, so that we move more passionately towards a state of awakening. These intense levels of disconnection only drive us deeper inside ourselves to find our own soul. What would happen, let's just say, that you woke up one morning and you didn't have any electricity, you had no running water, the food in the refrigerator was still cold, of course, but there was just no power. Now, everything that we take for granted, and we do, I mean, after a while, it's a habit. You know, we grow up in a society that takes for granted, you know, electricity and water. And it's there. We use it, right? And on occasion we have, you know, outages, but we couldn't fathom the fact that back in the Western days in this country, there wasn't any electricity. There were no flushing toilets. There was no running water. There was no plumbing. All we had to heat our homes was a fireplace that you'd put wood in and burn it. A place where you put wood and light it on fire. We used this as the kitchen, how we cooked our food. Now look at today compared to then. But we lived back then and we lived happy. So when you have something all the time at your fingertips, at your reach, you take it for granted. It's pretty normal that whatever normal is, that we take things for granted because we have them all the time. We grow up with them. We don't think about never having them. Now, this lifetime that we all have is meant to be a deeply enlightening experience. Is there anything more important than knowing how to access our own direct personal connection to an all-powerful, deeply, eternally loving source of highly intelligent, creative energy that has the magical power to manifest anything our heart desires? There is nothing more vital to finding happiness in this life than knowing one's spiritual connection, and nothing more exciting than a proven way to access it, which works every time. No matter how ridiculously stuck any of us feel about whatever, financial, relationships, health, sex life, future, excuse me, there's always a way to reach freedom. Always. Always. If you wish to gain a greater spiritual perspective in this life, and it's your choice, make the choice today to clarify your personal perspective in life, your personal relationship with the divine, You can see just how far you've come on your spiritual journey by asking yourself questions. I ask myself these questions all the time. And we've gone over them before, but you can't go over them enough. What is stopping you from always being in communion with God? What exactly is your relationship with God like? What does it feel like when you are having a truly intimate connection with God? How often do you recognize and connect with the divine aspects of yourself? How is your life different when living with this connection versus without it? Crucial questions to ask oneself. The longer we sit with these questions and feel into our answers, the deeper we will dig into our soul and eventually discover our spiritual connection. I've had people say, oh, it's too late for me. I'm too old. I'm getting ready to leave the body eventually here, probably in the next few years. And at the time, they're pretty healthy. It is never too late to connect. Even if you have wasted 75 years of your life on gluttonous, frivolous, mindless activities, feeling perpetually lost in a superficial life. And God is waiting for you to come in. When we take one step towards God, God will take 10 steps towards us. Now, if you want to use something else other than God, use pure consciousness. Make time to redefine your relationship with the divine. And I can guarantee you that your precious time will not be wasted. When I explore my own personal connection, and many others do this, with the divine, I always first look into my heart rather than my head. I remind myself constantly that I will move from my heart. I will be in my heart. Because my head is so full of ideas about what God is and is not, the head misses the real experience, feeling, and quality of godliness. Now, when the mind is quiet, still, and single-pointed into the now, we can instantly find that deeply alive spiritual feeling inside. And of course, focusing on the breath, being as still as a statue, moving into the now. And the God source already exists within the heart and at the core of our soul. And as we relax into this place, a timeless, deeply eternal, loving consciousness, energy, sneaks into us, relaxes every cell and fiber of our very being. Don't you find that God is the most mysterious thing in this universe? And perhaps because it is the universe. God exists in everyone and everything, including those people you think are deeply disconnected. Have you wondered how can such an amazing presence be so spatially close to us and still be so difficult to feel and see? I mean, it's like trying to look into your own eyes without a mirror. We look out at this life through these tiny little black holes in our eyes, taking them for granted and not realizing they exist at all because they are so close to us. When something is too close to us, we are often unaware how precious it is. The same applies to noticing God. We are unaware of God until we take a step back and look deeper into our own reflection and the great mirror that is all around us. Realization of the self is realization of God. It is not an experience of God. Rather, it is an understanding that one is God. Ramon Morici. Now, some of us would say, oh, this is all religious. This is religious stuff. All religious. Well, we know it isn't. God is an energy, an infinite energy, than some fixed, stagnant entity. The great isness is instantly found when we stop and feel into this eternal quality, which feels like we are always and forever here, now. The isness is our infinite nature. And this can only be experienced when we are living fully in the now, exploring life from a relaxed, trusting connection. The Divine Isness is the most accepting, healing, forgiving energy one could possibly imagine. The Isness is the source of deep eternal love, which when even momentarily welcomed, we instantly feel the most profound, ecstatic joy inside our heart. The knowing that we are eternal spiritual beings moves through us throughout the day, like a healing river of eternal liquid love. The very second we surrender our heart to just the idea of an eternally loving isness, we immediately find real peace, a sense of bliss, and a feeling of real satisfaction that cannot be compared. Knowing this isness is our basic nature. We start radiating like the sun and start shining our own spiritual essence into everyone in our life. Now, the only reason any of us may not feel, believe, and know that God is right here within the very center of our body, soul, and heart right now is because of one thing blocking the way. Our overly busy, demanding, controlling, and desiring mind. As long as the mind is wanting something, willing something, thinking it is lacking something, trying to reach a better place other than the great isness that's here now, we will easily miss our spiritual path. We will find ourselves living in thoughts about God instead of experiencing the real divinity. Now, if and when we get too lost in the head, we might end up walking into some highly intellectual, materialistic, and spiritually dry future. The God source is infinitely complex, yet deeply simple. God is actually quite easy to experience. The trick is learning what it takes to fully be here now. To feel the divine isness, we must first begin feeling whatever is up for us in this moment. Whatever is up for us in this moment. We must choose to explore how we can let go of the mind and open ourselves up emotionally. Feeling everything that is here now. When we call off the mental search looking for God out there, and we simply feel into the core essence of our being, we find that we have been the ones who were hiding and protecting ourselves from the divine. God has always been here, is always here, radiating within every atom in existence. As we drop deeper beneath the thinking mind and through our blocked emotions, we discover the greatest source of peace, silence, and stillness is where God abides. Be still and know that I am God. Have you ever said that about yourself? Be still and know that I am God. We humans are either existing in some form of suffering or living in some form of bliss. We are either in one or the other. We are either living in our head or we are in the heart of God. Once we quiet the mind, open our heart together, we can live a balanced life in both realms of head and heart. Doing this, we then start merging with the infinite mind of God. If and when we can remain in this balance 24 hours a day, we will master this lifetime. Then, every thought we think manifests into forming our living reality. Every thought we think manifests into forming our living reality. By living in constant emotional connection with the divine from our core, we become a living, bliss-breathing manifestation machine, perpetually creating every beautiful idea we feel and focus upon. Now, we all know that there aren't many things guaranteed in this life. We've learned that. Yet, there is one thing that is 100% guaranteed. And it is this. At some point, we are going to return to God. It will happen either when our body is still alive or when our body stops breathing. Eventually, all of us will feel intimately connected with the God again. So do not worry about when or how. All roads lead back to God, the pure consciousness, the path ahead and the path behind. They both lead back to the God. God is unavoidable because our past and future are just mental concepts which only exist within this living present moment. The mind alone is always blind to the divine. It is only with a quiet, surrendered mind that we may access an open, receptive heart which can see God in everyone and everything. The mind just doesn't want to realize how ignorant it actually is. It doesn't want to or care to see how powerless, unfulfilled, and trapped it is, as this would cause a huge embarrassment to the ego. When we spiritually wake up, the mind realizes its petty search in the outer world to find everlasting satisfaction is spiritually fruitless. Only when the mind surrenders to God do we discover what absolute bliss feels like. Otherwise, mind will continue to persist in its addictive habits of seeking fulfillment in the outer world. It will ignore seeing how true bliss is available here now, as it needs to continue its addictive search for years, decades, and lifetimes. The mind is always trying to get its desires met by people, food, substances, money, ideas, and is in the habit of constantly yearning for something. Yet, as we all know, once the mind gets what it wants, it's happy for a short while, then is back on the hamster wheel again, searching for fulfillment again. The mind is deeply unaware that it can never, ever be truly satisfied. It's good to know that whatever happens in this life, there are no real mistakes. There aren't. God is an infinitely positive, creative energy, and this fierce force does not know what a mistake is. So if you believe you're making mistakes, you are in the ego mind. Every mistake that we perceive to be real or true is simply the mind forming another judgment. There is universal right or wrong book. There is a universal right or wrong book. There is only deeper shades of truth in which each higher layer only reveals a lighter perspective on our enlightening mission we are here to learn. What is our greatest goal of this life? What is it? I believe it is to find that God source inside us 24 hours a day. This is the only thing which truly satisfies everything else. Everything else falls vastly short. Feeling into our own personal, intimate connection with the divine is the most important thing we can do with our time each day. Everything else we do is going to be the ego seeking some form of gratification, which of course will not last. We all know that. We've been there many times. So beware of the ego, as it is easily caught in complaints, negativity, and creating problems that weren't there before. Our only job is to move beyond our ego, transcend our small self, step into the big self that we truly are. When we finally surrender to God at the center of our soul, we will know without a doubt that we have just discovered the most amazing experience of coming home. So we are, and you can feel the vibrational frequencies of these words that I'm sharing and bring them in through the heart mind, not the head. And you'll be in total agreement with yourself. What will happen on this planet when we're all in sync with the God source? That we all know that within our soul is the God, pure consciousness. and that we merge with it. There would be no conflict. There would not be anybody trying to outdo themselves or anybody else. There would be no need to brag or be envious or feel guilty or revengeful, hurtful. There would be nothing like that. Wouldn't exist. And it won't exist. We won't cast aspersions at one another or ourselves. We will live in bliss. We will know that we are supreme manifesting beings that never die. And we also know that it will be effortless, literally effortless, to manifest anything that we want or desire. Instantaneously. Not 20 years from now. Instantaneously. Only if we realize that we stay in the heart mind. We practice being in the now, moment to moment. Does it make any sense to us that we spend the majority of our time in yesterday or tomorrow? We do. We wander off into tomorrow when we haven't even begun today. Or 3 weeks, a month from now, 2 months from now, a year from now. That's why a lot of us become so exhausted. Because we're constantly seeking and searching outside of ourselves. And we don't find it. Now, maybe one of the biggest benefits of doing that is that we come full circle and we find out that, hey, I don't know how many lifetimes I've been doing this, seeking outside of myself, finding satisfaction and gratification through material physical things in this world. I think it might be a good idea that I start my search by going within and practicing being in the now. Not only practicing it, staying in the now. Now, I'm not saying that that's a cinch, since we all have habit of doing the opposite. We've been trained and conditioned to believe that you have to go out there, you have to work really, really, really hard to acquire anything. Now, and in some ways, we prove that to ourselves to be true. Now, when we flip the switch, we then begin to realize that none of that is necessary to attract what we want. None of it. Now, it is a direction outside of us in the material physical world, of course, because we've all been conditioned to believe that that's the path. And some people, they get lots of money and fame and all this, but they feel empty. Is this all there is? I want a big house, so the person gets a big house. And after a while they go, got to be something else. So they get something else. And then after a while, there's got to be something else. The difference between the now, being in the heart mind, and yesterday, tomorrow, and being in the ego mind, is that you have no peace in the ego mind. You aren't at ease in the ego mind. You have worry, stress, fear, anxiety in the ego mind. The heart mind, the opposite. It is absolutely the opposite. You begin to gain confidence, trust, and faith in yourself and this universe. And you find yourself not wanting. You really find yourself not wanting. This is a very different direction for many of us because we've been taught to want. But it's a positive in the way because it teaches us to not want. And when we don't want, it means that the ego mind is not in charge. You know when you want, right? It's the ego mind. The heart mind doesn't want, right? The heart mind is part of the God. Doesn't want, doesn't need, isn't worried, stressed, and fearful, is blissful, happy, and at peace. And when we become acclimated to being in the heart mind 24 hours a day, we will find how effortless it is to manifest anything that we desire or want. It'll be much different than being in the ego mind. You begin to realize that you would like to see everybody on this planet happy, not just temporarily, but always. You begin to realize that you would like to see all the other parts of you, which is everybody, in peace and bliss. Not just temporarily, but all the time. And then you choose to start understanding that this is our natural state of being, loving ourselves and each other 24/7. It's not, now our unnatural state of being is how we are today. Most living in the ego mind. What instigates a war? Ego mind. That's what instigates a war. What instigates peace? Heart mind. We only have the ego mind temporarily. It could be lifetimes, but it's still temporarily. And what is that about? Because we learn how to master the ego mind. And the only way to do that is to practice in meditation, being in the now, focusing on the breath. It's not a temporary state. I believe that some people believe that it's a temporary state. It isn't. It's our natural state of being, but for many it's uncomfortable because they aren't used to it, even though it's their natural state of being. We begin to actually see, feel everything on this planet and throughout existence, the different fields of energy and how they're shaped and molded by the God, us. Gets too lopsided, right? And too many of us forget about who and what we really are in this body. Then we have what we have. Conflict. Exasperation. Interference. Frustration. Irritation. The more creative we become, the more godly we become. when our creativity comes to a climax, when each moment of our life is filled with creativity, then we live in God. Osho. I'll join you in the meditation. I'll return to close us out. Take an easy and slow breath in from the nose. Easy and slow breath out from the mouth. Remain still. You are the star of your movie. As the star of this grand motion picture called The Amazing Life of You, you have the most fantastic role to play. Your main part is to do whatever you want. That's right. Your job is to do whatever makes your heart sing the loudest every single day. Your purpose is to totally enjoy it all. You're here to become so liberated that you can celebrate the drama, enjoy the sad parts, the scary scenes, and love all the amazing actors and performers you meet on stage along the way. Once you can enjoy every single interaction on the grand stage of this life, you'll discover your soul's higher purpose for being here. Saying yes to the pure enjoyment of each scene can be quite a challenging feat, as you may not remember that this incredible show is very temporary, and one day it will all be over. This big, bodacious truth hits you when all the props, costumes, and masks start falling off everyone as we reach the final scene at the end of the show. You have been such an awesome actor, it's time for you to be rewarded for your work. Step down off the stage tonight. Take a long, deep look in the mirror and receive the standing ovation you deserve. We all love you and recognize there's not enough trophies to give you for being this amazing soul that you are. Take this with you for the rest of the day into the evening and night the following morning. And we'll return here Monday, February 12, 2024, till after 3:15 p.m. Eastern to continue our global guided meditation call. Be gentle, kind, generous, and humble with yourself at all times. Be in the highest of the highest high, deepest of the deepest deepest, purest of the purest purest, eternal gratitude at all times, no matter what's going on within you or outside of you.